Hi guys, welcome back to Hello Younger Me. If you're new here, my name is Chikat. Very nice to meet you. If you're old here, if you're a veteran, please respect yourself and go and subscribe. Wanna wait? You know? Okay. Alright, so today's video is about credit cards for international students. We're going to be talking about demystifying the myths surrounding credit cards. I'm going to be talking about your credit score, talking about if you should have a credit history. If you're interested, stick around, okay? Guys, all right, let's look at the myths. Okay, so I think one of the first things, even for me, I always had this question, like, can international students actually get a credit card? It seems like it's something that's reserved mainly for people who actually live here, you know, green card holders and citizens. But you can actually get a credit card if you're an international student. You need mainly two things, I'd say. The first thing is an SSN, which is a social security number. When you're born here, you get one. The second thing that substitutes for the SSN is the ITIN, which is the Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, ITIN. With those two, you can't get a credit card. The second thing I would say is having a credit history, which is not, it depends honestly, because when I came here, I didn't have a credit history and I got a credit card on my first try. So it's not necessary to have a credit history before you apply, but it does really help. Okay, and for the SSN, when you get an on-campus job, like I've talked about, your international office gives you an authorization letter to take to the Social Security, I think that's administration, to the SSA, and they would give you a Social Security card that has a number, and that's so when they give it to you, they would write, I think on a black, they write it with like black ink that this is just for working, but you can use that to apply for a credit card. So if you have an SSN, you can go ahead and apply for a credit card. The worst thing that can happen is they tell you no. But I actually got my credit card a year after coming here. It was the Bank of America Travels Reward, and I was a year, so I didn't have any other credits here. So and I applied and I got it. So you never know. Okay, so the second myth is that if you get a credit card, you are automatically going to be in debt. You're spending recklessly, and you just have like thousands and thousands of dollars. That's not true. I mean, it depends on the kind of person you are. If you're one to like constantly overspend, if you see your credit card as a second source of income, then you could do that. But so for me anyways, credit cards are helpful for times when you're gonna get money into your account, but it's not here yet, and you have like an emergent need. Credit card is a pretty good resource to have. Secondly, excuse me, most credit cards give what's called cashback rewards. So that's basically when you spend your credit card maybe to the grocery store, and for the amount you spend, they give you 8% back. Could be 1%, could be 2%, could be 3%, depending. So that's kind of like free money. So if you use your credit card on a really big expenditure, and I wouldn't say spend big when you have no way of it coming back to you. But if you know you're going to buy something big and you already have the money in your account, but you have a credit card, using that credit card, you get what you want to get a cash reward that can help you also pay back for what you spent it on. So it's kind of like free money, but I always say, don't just spend it blindly. Make sure you know that there's a way to pay it back soon, because most credit cards have like a timeline where if you don't pay your balance, then they charge you an interest rate, right? And that's how they make money off you. So you want to be sure that if you do spend it, you have an assured way of paying back. I would say an important thing to keep in mind when you do want to get a credit card is to take note of the APR rate of the card. That's like the interest the credit card company would charge you. Most of them are like 15%, 20%, which is pretty high. So that's why I say don't spend it blindly, because when they come back to get their money from you, it's gonna hurt. So make sure you know you have a way of paying it back. Okay, so the third myth is, I guess people think sometimes, why do you need a credit history? Is that really important? Can't you just avoid having credit cards? And if you have enough money, you don't need to ever have a credit card, Well, in different countries, that might be true. In my country, Nigeria, that's true. You don't really need a credit card if you have enough money. But here it's different, because with your credit card comes a credit history, which is basically a report on how you have been handling your credit card. It's your judgment, okay, of what you did with your credit card when you've had it. It's important because your employer, if you're gonna get an apartment, the bank, all these people use your credit history to judge you on how financially responsible you have been. Okay, because your credit card will tell them how much debt you're in, if you paid on time, what's your current credit score. We'll talk more about that. So it is important to have. So even if you have enough money and you're not worried about that ever being in an emergent need, have a credit card so that when it comes to that point, because now you're probably students, right? So you don't need to save money to buy a house, But even if like you had a lot of money, houses here cost at least, a decent house, 200,000. Do you just have that lying around? Just like pick it up. It's not likely that you may have that like, ready to go when you need it. Or a car. It's a car, if you want to buy like a new car, it's like what, 15,000 and above. That's a lot of money to just sink into one investment. And why not have because usually cars and houses, you take loans for them and you pay them off, installmentally. But for banks, or banks for your housing loans, and probably the car dealership or whichever car loan provider you use, for them to actually give you that loan, they would use your credit history to judge you on how responsible you've been. So now that you don't need to make those expenditures, this is a time you can use to build your credit history, so that when you do need it, you don't have to worry about that, So it is actually important, especially if you are considering staying in the States for longer after you finish your degree. So really consider that, okay? Okay, so remember I mentioned about mentioning credit history and how it's important to have one. I also mentioned that most credit cards companies require you to have, a good credit history for them to give you a credit card. So how do you build a credit history without actually having a credit card, right? The easiest ways there are two ways, okay? The first one is to be an authorized user on another person's credit card. So that could be like a family member or like a close friend you have here in the States. And so being an authorized user means you're on their account. So you can spend, you shouldn't be spending their money, but you're on their account. So if they are responsible in keeping their credit, then that credit worthiness is also allotted to you. Okay, so you're benefiting from them being financially responsible. So you're kind of building your own credit on their account without actually having your own credit card. Okay, and then when you have built sufficient amount of good credit history, then you can go get your credit card. Note that the person you choose should be financially responsible, because if they are not, that also affects you too in a bad way. Okay, so the second way is to get a secured credit card. Secured credit card means it kind of acts like a debit card, meaning you have to put in a deposit on that credit card, right, before you start spending. Regular credit cards, you don't have to do that. The credit card company gives you money to spend responsibly. But a secured credit card is when you actually have to put in money first. When you do that and they see that, okay, you're paying your balance, you're paying your installments on time, you're not overspending, then they could actually give you back your deposit and you could get a real credit card. Okay, so it's like a safe way of showing trust and then getting your own credit card. Okay, so remember I talked about the credit score. Your credit score is a way to measure your credit worthiness. That's what it is. How do you get one if you don't have a credit card already, right? So if you just open a credit card or if you just get a credit card, your score does not start from the lowest, the bad range, and it doesn't start from the best, the excellent range. It actually starts somewhere in the middle. And to actually determine the number you get in the middle, there are 5 main things that the credit card companies may take into consideration. The first one is your credit history. Like I said, it's important to have a good one, you know, like did you use the authorized user? Did you use a secured credit card? That might not even matter. People like for me, I didn't have any of that and I still got one. So depends on the credit card you actually apply for. You know, different ones can be strict about certain things, right? The second thing is your credit utilization. What does that mean? It means how much of the money, when they give you a certain amount of money, the credit card companies, how much of that money are you actually using? Okay, they don't want to see you using 90% of the money. So if you have like, you know, a $4,000 credit line is like the amount of money they give you to spend. So if they give you $4,000, that's your credit line. Are you spending $3,500 every month? You know what I mean? I get worried that this one you're spending so much money. What if there comes a time when you can't pay off that much money? So financial advisors advise you to stay 30% below the money they give you at all times. Try to make it sure it's at least 30% or at most 30%, my bad. The third thing that might determine your credit score is your credit mix. That is, how much different credits do you have? Okay, by credits I mean like loans. You know, there's like student loans, there are house loans, housing loans, there are car loans, and they're like credit cards, right? So if let's say you have a credit loan opened for a new car you just got, congratulations, you know, or maybe you have multiple credit cards. The more diverse your credit mix is, and the more diverse it is and it's still being well managed, that counts for you. You know, those are points that you get, and you know, it helps your credit score go more to the excellent side. Okay, and then another thing they take into consideration is your the length of your credit history. So for me right now, 2016, so I've had like 5 years of credit history, and if in those 5 years I've, you know, been on the good side of the credit score range, then yeah, that would help me in getting a housing loan, for example. Okay, because you know that for 5 years you have been you have been responsible with the money, so it's more likely that you would continue to be responsible with that money. Okay, and I know the longer your credit history goes, the more credit line you get for yourself. So you can start out having maybe $1,000 of credit line, you know, the money you can't spend, your the and then later down the line, if you apply for more credit cards, they might increase it to 5,000 or 10,000, or you know, the longer your history is, the better, the higher the money you'd be given. Okay, And the last thing is the amount of new credit cards or new credits you get. You know, also in that category, the amount of times people, how do I say it? So when people try to assess your credit history, a hard check, so checking your credit score, it could affect your credit score. It could bring it down. So if a lot of people, like, you get a bank loan, you check your credit score, you get a housing loan, you check your credit score, you get a student loan, you check your credit score, a lot of people are inquiring on that credit score. So that might mean that you might be in trouble. You know, that's how your credit score may reflect that you might be in trouble with a lot of people checking your credit score. That might not be the case, but that's how it's interpreted. Okay, so try not to always let your credit history be run. You know, when they ask you, oh, do you mind if you run your credit history or loan? If you don't need that badly, or maybe you go to like a shopping, what's it called, a clothing store, and they want to give you the store's credit card, and they require to run a hard check on your credit score. If you don't need that credit card, decline it, because it could affect you in the long run. If it's like a lot of checks being run on you in a short amount of time, it's not so good for you. So but the more credit cards you open, if you manage them properly, that's good on your credit score. Okay, so we've been through the myths, we've been through credit scores, credit history. Now lastly, if you are seriously considering getting a credit card, which I think you should, and you want to know how to check it without like damaging your score, I use Credit Karma. This is not a paid advert, even though it should be. But I mean, I use it. I think they have an app, so you get an app on your phone, so you can always make sure you have a good idea of where you stand. Okay, so if this has been helpful, please like, please share, please subscribe. If you know someone who is trying to decide whether to get a credit card, you know, share, why don't you? But it's been nice having you guys here again. I hope to see you guys again. Bye.
You got that something that can't be seen. You got that one thing